Hi everyone, welcome to the November edition of Edinburgh Reproducibility. Hope you're having a nice day, and today we're going to be hearing from Dr. Manuela Marescotti, who is the scientific editor of Brain Communications, which is an open access peer-reviewed journal publishing studies in neuroscience, neurology and psychiatry. And today she's going to be talking about academic publishing and peer review. So I'll let you take it away, Manuela.
Thank you, Emma. Good morning to you, and good morning to the Edinburgh Reproducibility community. It's great to be with you today and to talk to you about academic publishing from my perspective as a person that works within a journal part of this world. So academic publishing, I think that is not much known, or at least within the extent that should be known by researchers, even if it is the super important, that is important in which respect is important for the scientific community. So actually, I don't want to say scientific, but really the community in general, because it's a way, it's part of contribute to the validation of information that contribute to the general knowledge. So it's important in general, but it's also important more at the personal level, because publishing articles within academia is crucial for the career path of a person working in this context. So despite such the impact of academic publishing on these two different levels, it is some aspects are not very well known, and that's why in general I try to contribute to talk about this world now that I'm part of it. That's why I'm super happy to talk to you today. So I like to compare academic publishing to tangled wires, because it's a situation where the ends of the cables. So in general, that you are publishing. You are sending more than publishing, because you are submitting a paper to a journal. You know that at some point a paper is published, but so you know the two ends, but you don't know really what's going on in the middle. But before clarify you some details about academic publishing, I would like to give you some information about my background, and also where I work, my context at the moment. So as you can tell from my name and from my accent, I am not originally from Scotland, but in reality I am Italian. So I've been studied in Italy, in particular at the University of Naples Federico II, for my undergraduate and master, both within the context of biotechnology in association to human diseases. So my background is basically molecular. I was in love with genetics. And then later I moved to Edinburgh for my PhD, for a PhD in neuroscience. So since my first project, I have always, during my undergraduate, I always worked within the context of neurodegenerations. But before I was working on identifying the mutations leading to these mutations. And then later, since my PhD, I started to work to which is the consequence of the mutation in a gene in some proteins, what then makes faulty a protein and subsequently lead to the disease. And since my PhD, I started to work with fruit flies, a system that, despite the appearances, is very similar to mammals and also to human beings, because believe it or not, it has a brain and a lot of proteins in common with humans. On top of that, is quite small. As you imagine, a fruit fly is not much longer than 1 centimeter. So does not eat much, does not take too much space, so it's quite cheap to maintain. And on the other side, has a life cycle that is much shorter than human being, but as well as compared to mammals, because it can reach adult life from the embryo stage in only 10 days. And so it's great to follow up diseases over time. During my postdoctoral experience, I would like just to mention I think the experience that changed my path from researcher to more the publishing world. That was this experience as a newsletter editor of the Genetic Society UK. That reality is an experience that I embraced, thinking that I want to expand my scientific network and all basically improve my English, not being a native speaker. In reality, it allowed me to organize 8 issues for the newsletter of this society, and also starting to basically read constantly works. In general, there were works from part of projects funded by Genetic Society grants. So, and I thought, wow, I maybe like more to read and study without much the stress of experiments. And during my last postdoc, I joined the team of Brain Communications Journal as editorial assistant and part-time. Later, I became a scientific editor full-time. Just a few words about Brain Communications Journal. So this is a relatively young academic journal that is the open access sister journal of Brain. If you are a neuroscientist, you for sure have heard at least about Brain, that is more than 100 years old. Basically, in the path taken by this journal and the guarantors of Brain, that is the society originally Brain towards the open access system. There was the foundation of Brain Communications. The current editor-in-chief is Professor Sarah Spur-Jones, who is based at the University of Edinburgh and is an expert within the field of Alzheimer's and dementia. And at Brain Communications, we are committed to fair, transparent, and author-friendly publication of rigorous research studies related to neurology, psychiatry, and brain health. And keep this in mind for some later information that I will give you. So after this first introduction, I would like to walk with you within the world of academic publishing, but more reality, we are talking about peer review journals. And I think this, and I would like then to put more in context both my role that I told you before of a scientific editor within a peer-reviewed journals, but also give also more context at the journal where I work for. So basically, starting from what as researchers you know you are used in general to see the world of like of papers. So from your point of view, like doing experiments or carrying on studies, then write the results of your research within the format of a manuscript, and then send this manuscript to an academic journal. And after basically this a path of I would say a number of steps, this manuscript becomes a paper with, as we know it, like when it's published. Now, within this context, I would like to start to localize peer review a bit. I will treat it a bit like I used to treat proteins. So like, let's start to see the localization of peer review within this context. A peer review in reality is in behind the scenes of a journal. Sorry, it's appeared. It's in reality is one of the steps that a paper has to go through to be published. This is in reality one of the steps, the one that in reality makes validates the work that you have sent. So the condition sine qua non, the paper needs to be published. But I have to say, it's not the only step. I'm saying this as a person working behind the scenes. And during this talk, I will tell you a bit more details that will clarify what I just said. But what is super interesting here is that the peer review is made by reviewers that, as you can see here, are part of academia. In reality, are part of academia as well as you, the author of the paper. And they are involved in the peer review by editors that work for the journal. So I don't know, I think it's important to mention, to highlight this, that the peer review, the crucial aspect of a paper, that a paper goes through when it's within the journal, in reality is carried out by reviewers that in reality are not part of the journal. So just to characterize even more this step, we can say that if we treat it as a protein, we look at the interactors to understand more this step. So the main interactors, or better actors, here are the reviewers, the editors that are chosen by to check this paper, the manuscript, and yourself that you wrote the manuscript. But what are these reviewers more in particular? These are these are the people that give to this word the term peer. So these are peers of you that you wrote the manuscript. These are peers that have the same expertise as you, the author of the paper, to check your work. This is a practice that even if has been reported to have few hundreds of years, to be few hundreds of years old, in reality, as we know it, as a crucial step to validate a work that then is published by an academic journal, it started to be used only in the 70s. And basically, reviewers, how are chosen? These are the reviewers, as we said, I said, are chosen by some editors working part of the journal. I will tell you why they are not always working for the journal in a bit. And they are of course chosen for their expertise, but how the editors can know about their expertise? In reality, about maybe papers that these reviewers have written, that is the proof that is more in some way more sure of the expertise of these people, but in reality also in practical, what I see is also sometimes they are involved by the PhD supervisor, if these are still PhD students. They can be also people that get in touch with the editorial team, talking about their projects and saying, look, we are available for that. In general, there are 2 reviewers that are chosen for peer review paper, but can be also 1, can be more if you need further opinions. So just to, I think this at least is dissecting the peer review aspect. Now, of peer review in reality, there are, we can say that there are slightly different models. Maybe in the terms of proteins, we would say isoforms, but so peer review models that are, there are, first of all, 3 of them that that exclude each other, so that are related to who is anonymized within this system. So we have a case, actually going back to this scheme, where that is, I would say, the most common, at least within scientific subjects, that is single anonymized, where basically the reviewers are not known, but the author's name are known. Also the editors know basically both the identity of the author and the identity of reviewers, but the authors do not know the identity of the reviewers. Then we have the double anonymized, where both editors still know the identity of researcher and reviewers, but and basically both reviewers do not know the identity of the authors of the manuscript, and the authors do not know the identity of the reviewers, or even more triple anonymized, where basically no one knows the identity of the other 2 interactors. That would be the best option if we want to remove any kind of bias from this system. Then we have other 2 aspects that are open peer review and transparent peer review, that in reality these are options that can be part of can be sometimes optionals in these cases, where then can be made available the name of the reviewer when the paper is published, and also transparent when the whole review is made available. When I say review, like all the reports done by the reviewers are made available for the public alongside the manuscript. Then I would like to give you, sorry, first of all, interrupt me if is there anything that you would like clarification for, or I'm happy to answer to any questions at the end of the talk. It's up to you. But so here, then I wanted to start to give you some to give context to the peer review, looking at academic journal structure. So in all the academic journals, you have some aspects that are the same. So we have an editor-in-chief that supervise the whole journal, can handle or not the manuscript. In general, can handle, but for sure, so maybe look only at some aspect, depends on the journal, but it's more a kind of supervision managing role. Then we always have a team of associate editors, people that have a more specific expertise within the subject of the journal. For example, Brain Communications, that is in general a journal that publishes works within neuroscience and neurology. Then you find associate editors with more a molecular background, people that work more with clinical studies, neuroimaging. So different expertise. Then we have an editorial office that support these editors, but also checks that the papers that the journal accept are in line with the guidelines of the journal. And then we have a publishing group that takes care of a number of things such as marketing, production. But I would like to, so these are the 4 aspects that are always there. Of course, the reviewers, but the reviewers are, as I said, I told you about them and are outside the journals. Now, there are also in this case different models of academic journals. There are the society academic journals that are historically the first one to be funded, because originally there were these societies, as I said, like before, the Guarantors of Brain, or there is the Genetic Society that I joined, that I told you I joined as a newsletter editor. And basically these societies originally, they started to fund some journals that could publish, of course, advancement in the research of, in particular, of the people that were part of these societies. But nowadays, so what happens is that we have these journals that have a bit more a characteristic structure, that is an editorial office that is employed by the journal, funded, in reality employed by the society. Then we have an editor-in-chief and associate editors that in general are academic people, so not people that are employed by the society or the journal, how we want to say, but these are people that are researchers, like, as I said, Professor Tara Spurgeon, that then dedicate a part of their time to support the journal in the capacity of this editor or this other editor. And then we have, and in general, when the associate editors are academic, we have a quite big team of people. If I have to give you a more or less a number, like can be like 15, 20. Interesting, sorry, and we have a publishing group that is external to the society or the journal. So this is something that you see. Then if you look at independent academic journals, an example can be the journals belonging to the Nature group, for example. These are journals not funded from the society. They are like basically companies themselves, where the editor-in-chief, the associate editor, are employed by the journal. So even if they are people with a great experience as researchers, they stopped that job and they started just to work for the journal. In general, the associate editors in this case are less. Also because they handle less papers. This is a bit of a different kind of situation. And we have still an editorial office that is employed by the journal. Also, we have a change in the publishing group that in reality is still the one that includes the journal. So it's not something external. In fact, Nature has a Nature publishing group that in reality now owns a number of journals. Now we have a third model that is also sometimes I saw for independent academic journal that is a bit mixed only if we look at the associate editors, where we have people employed by the journal, but also editors that they may be called more like advisory, that are academic, and they are like taken into account for some specific decisions also in handling papers, but they don't handle papers as a routine like the ones employed by the journals. So I thought it was interesting to tell these differences, because sometimes there is a bit of confusion also about the role of associate editors, and also this sometimes can give also the idea of how things can be also slower. Sorry, there is this sound in the back. They are doing some works here in Georgia Square. Sometimes, like in terms of workloads and stuff. I just want to briefly mention that it's interesting to listen to these 3 interviews that I have run to 3 editors. In fact, we have here an associate editor of Brain Communications. Oh, sorry. Here we have the deputy editor of Communications Biology that actually follows the mixed model that I just told you, and then the one of the it's moving. The associate. Okay, sorry, my computer is getting crazy. Okay. And then we have one of the associate editor of a journal from the Nature family, Nature Nanotechnology, that follows the classical schematic of the independent journal, just because I really try to understand and clarify to other people which are the differences. It's very interesting to listen to their experiences and which is the everyday type of life, of course, at work. Now, going back. I told you things that are true in general, and I lead you to the case of brain communications. In this way, you can see a bit like more in practice what I told you, what it means. So the model of brain communications, as I said before, is funded by a society. So it is a society journal. It follows from the point of view of the peer review model. It is a single blind peer review. So the reviewers know the identity of the authors of the paper, but the authors do not know the identity of the reviewers unless the reviewers give the availability for publish their names and their review alongside the manuscript. So this is optional, the open and the transparent peer review for us, but there are people that allow that. Looking at the schematic, sorry, I also put here the option, the schematic of the journal. Basically, the editor-in-chief in our case, as I said, is Professor Tara Spurgeons, that handles some. Of course, she supervises, as I said before, but she also handles the papers that come into the journal. She goes through them, sees if they are within the scope of the journal, and also she gives the final approval before, the final approval in reality, not only to accept or reject, but also for any kind of decision like major, minor, that a paper can go through. Then we have 3 teams of editors in our case. We have advisory editors, associate editors, and editorial office. The advisory editors are people that are neuroscientists, in our case, with a certain experience, both within the field of neuroscience, but also in the experience of publishing academic publishing, and basically they really give advice. They take part to our editorial board meetings and share some, when we have to set up an experience, we have to make a change to our organization, they share their experience and give us, in fact, advice. Then we have a big team of associate editors. Actually, sorry, I moved to 23 to 24. I did not update the previous slide. So 24 associate editors. I told you before that, so in the case of a society journal, we have more associate editors. These are all associate editors that are academic, so they do research at the moment, and they have different expertise. And what they do is that they get assigned a paper from the editor-in-chief, if the editor-in-chief thinks that the paper is within the scope of the journal. Now, they get a paper assigned based on their expertise, and they also can desk reject the paper or decide to invite reviewers to in fact peer review these papers. So as we said, more expert of that manuscript. They handle so at this stage, but they also handle the recommendation that the reviewers, because the reviewers in reality don't make a decision. The reviewers make a recommendation that then is revised by the associate editors and they make a decision. Now, after this step, I have to say it arrives, we can, I would like to mention the editorial office, because in our case, the editorial office is also part of the decision made about that journal. In particular, myself, that originally I was only myself, but then now I have a team, a little team of university students that help me in some of my tasks. We do an internal check at the papers. We check that our papers follow our guidelines in terms of transparency, reproducibility, rigor. And basically, so my my checks arrive after the decision in reality made by the associate editor, but I can still change this decision, let's say. So let's say that I would say that maybe it's better to say that there is a decision made by the associate editor and also myself. If there are still issues that I see, I can pause the acceptance of the paper. So, but going back to the editorial office, then I will tell you something more about my role and my team. So we have, in this case, an editorial office employed by the journal. I am employed by the journal, also the managing editor team. So they are in charge of quality checks. So they check that the paper follows the guidelines in terms of quality. I don't know, figures rightly mentioned into the paper, you know, like visibility or clear images, can be anything in this kind of terms. I check the guidelines from the scientific point of view. Then we have the publishing group that in this case is external, is the Oxford University Press. And the publishing group in reality is like in charge of the, I would say, of the production aspect. So they have a marketing team that they support also, the marketing information associated to SIME initiatives that we run, and they also they make contact with other little companies that take care of some aspect of the you know, like of paper, basically editing and publishing. For example, there is a PA Editorial that is a company that provides editors trained for the team of the managing editor team that know about the system we use. Strive that provides people that do some initial quality checks on the paper. Then we have this Nanotech Set that is the company in charge of the final production of the papers. So they basically make the layout. They work on the website. So basically there is a huge team of people behind the scenes. But so just to spend a couple of words more about my role, to give context to myself within all this system, I said before, which is the scope of the journal, and I basically check myself the the data, how they are provided, the analysis, if they follow our rules. I have to say why this is important. I like to stress this point, not because I'm in charge myself of this, but because you have to think that since we have a system where the reviewers are external to the journal, and also in particular for our journal, we have associate editors that are not employed by the journal. It is important that there is someone also from the scientific point of view, even if I'm not expert of every paper that we receive, but I have that anyway, a background, a neuroscientific background, that basically checks that we conform to some standards. And this is not very clear, I realized, to the authors, because sometimes they can be, rarely I have to say, but they may be a bit stubborn and make some changes that I ask, because they say, okay, but the reviewers' comments are positive. They are saying clearly they're accepting. You are just delaying my acceptance. The reviewers are for sure right to say that the paper from their point of view should be accepted, but if I am telling you like that this analysis, and sometimes could be something very simple also related just to this like analysis between two subgroups and more than two, and they want to do single t-tests sometimes for compare comparisons between several data groups, like you have to conform to some standards of that are basically stated by this journal. Now, I'm going towards the conclusion. I would like to say that there are this system. I wanted to share with you this system of peer review that is super important for publishing these papers, therefore for our projects to go on, for the careers of researchers to go on. In reality, has some issues that we have all read about, like the fact that is not always peer review is not always a way to distinguish between bad science and good science, like the case. This case that was actually mentioned in the September meeting of the Edinburgh reproducibility, that is in reality a bigger case, but I have to, as I said before, I realize how can be, sometimes, practically speaking, something can be missing in all this process, even if there are a lot of experts looking at these papers. And in fact, there are solutions that are proposed by journals in general, but also by, like I see also from us, in being transparent. So something that has been done, that there is a lot required nowadays to make available the data, the analysis through repositories, because of course, the people that check the papers and not done the experiments cannot see the people that have done the experiments in the lab, what exactly they were doing. So they need as much information as possible when they check the paper. And then, of course, more information for whoever wants to replicate those studies. And then also another solution is to promote type of articles that promote transparency, like the registered report that actually just this year we started to publish the stage 2 of a couple of registered reports, where you have a clear plan that should be accepted, peer-reviewed and accepted, and then a paper that can be published only when, if the outcome of the study that was planned follow the original plan. Then other issues that also in that context, in the context of peer review, you may have underrepresentation of women or other groups, and there are studies showing that there is some bias. I also run an analysis, and I'm updating one about the gender, and this year I'm also doing the geography. I published this, I forgot, sorry, to add the link. I did not really see a bias, but there are other bias in brain communications, but there are other studies showing that in several disciplines you have some underrepresentations of some groups, although I think that is more related to the fact that there is an original underrepresentation, so it's all connected this way. Then we have, I think the issue is a big issue is related to the reviewers training, the reviewers commitment, because as I said, today I want to stress a lot the point that the reviewers are not part of the journal. So of course for them is an extra burden to review papers, and also the reviewers, as all the researchers, as all the authors, they are all people coming from everywhere in the world with different trainings, different backgrounds. So they are not always trained to review these papers. And therefore, I can see that information of statistics, of basic statistics, for example, are not carefully checked by them. So these solutions that the journals are trying to do are reward programs for the commitment or training. For example, also at Brain Communications, we have a reviewer academy that we try to run to give feedback about the reviews to the reviewers, and also open debate to make maybe double-blind peer review for journals that are using a single blind model. So these are things that are part also of observations coming from debates that are a bit internal our journal. So I thought that's why it was useful maybe to have the point of view of a person working within an academic journal. Just now, so thank you very much for your attention. Get in touch through my main channels. As I said before, I like a lot to talk about this world and to make it clear for researchers. And I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.